Many natural disasters, such as land degradation, could be prevented. For example, fishing in the lake periodically based on a reasonable routine prevents overfishing. The Zero Hunger program in Philippines is especially successful. In 2020, the coronavirus swept the world and consequently food transportation became an issue. As a result, about a tenth and a third of all people on a global scale suffered from hunger and malnutrition.
So Harvest is established in 1997. It is an agriculture corporation business, and it is well known as a family business. They hope to bring adaptable, practical, and high-quality solutions for agriculture productivity in Philippines. Harvest already have developed many things such as quality seeds for better productivity, agri-plastic for soil and seeding health, sustainable crop nutrition and protection inputs, climate-resilient greenhouse, irrigation system, and labor-efficient machines like tractors, drones, and many more. They also have partnered with SM Foundation and local government and conducted training programs on agriculture technologies for small vegetable farmers nationwide and to encourage people to plant at home. There are 22,000 vegetable farmers graduated from the program Harvest KSK.
To address the suggestion of differentiation, we should first focus on younger kids. And we think that educational games will be a very good supplement to their education. There are tons of studies being done in this area that illustrates the advantages of this practice in education. Pransky's 2003 paper, Digital Game-Based Learning, studied over 9,000 times, concretely concludes that video games have the positive effect of enhancing students' visual selective attention. Existing educational game platforms like Kahoot have already achieved great success, and there's a paper done by Wang and Tahir consolidated this. To achieve this idea of educational games, the visual games can either be self-developed by Harvest, which gives them more control and freedom of their forms and contents, but costs more. It can also be carried out on platforms like Kahoot, that's far more economic than developing animation programs for kids. And according to statistics.com, nearly 70% of people in Philippines have cell phones. So we assume that in urban areas, this plan will be possible.
Of adding agriculture to science. So adding agricultural to your science education. If you could please expand on that suggestion, which I loved, by the way.
Well, the reason why we propose this is because the curriculum is in the school and the agricultural curriculum is not carried out very well according to them. And so for schools, their first and their primary mission is to teach students, right? So I assume all the schools will have biology curriculums. And if there must be units about plants, and take plant embryos as an example, if school teacher or biology teacher can use harvest seeds to teach about plants embryos, then based on that, step by step, we can put more and more harvest related stuff into the existing curriculum, and adding upon that, we can have a sole agriculture curriculum for harvest, and that will be better for the schools to adapt to this situation.
Since the country eats primarily rice, what kinds of vegetables do you think would be acceptable to the population?
We hope to bring more adaptable. It's not really about the size of the, how big your farm is. It's more about each household can plant their vegetables at home because Philippines and South Asia, not many people have like a backyard or anything. Most of them live in tenements. So we just hope to provide them with packages and introduce the ideas to them so they can plant and get nutrition.
I'm curious about the rural component of this. I mean, you talk a lot about the urban areas. Are you also targeting rural areas? And so,
sorry.
if so, what about the access to the internet in the rural areas?
So this Harvest TV program is proposed to solve the problem with agricultural curriculum in cities. And this program is carried out solely or mainly for the urban populations. And for the rural areas, Harvest have other programs and they cooperate with farms and universities to bring technology to farmers so they can have better knowledge about how to farm the most efficient ways. And for the urban people, we want them to have a better diet and to have a better knowledge of environment and planting through Harvest TV.
Thank you.
Who's responsible for watering them when you transplant it in the garden? Is it your mom, your dad, or you?
Oh, all three of us go. We have a puppy who will like bite on the water. So one of us like supposed to not let the dog like ruin the garden, while the other spraying the water.
That's wonderful. So it sounds like a lot of you use YouTube to learn how to plant. So how could Harvest TV be differentiating itself if there are already a lot of planting type of information out there? What makes them different?
The previously when we talk with Bambies, the interest to trigger me is they use very organic system to plant, like they introduce, like they teach the technology, not use any chemicals, like a treatment to manage the pests and also give the fast, previously I think, but we all know organic's good. Yeah, and good for environment and more sustainable. So I think this is a big differentiation from others. Yeah.
I would also like to add on to that question. As I mentioned in my presentation, I think one of the biggest advantage of Harvest that it has a lot of offline resources. Imagine you're a kid in Philippines and will you search for a planting video on YouTube? Probably not. So as Harvest have a lot of resources in offline stuff and it has collaborated with schools to implement agricultural curriculums as a requirement, or the students being interested in this stuff, they will be more glad to participate in this self-planting project rather than they being on the internet and search it themselves.
So do you know the nutritional value of strawberry or tomato because you've been planting them?
No.
I only know the calories. I don't know much. I can tell you the calories because that's all I know, but I would love to learn more.
Yeah, we would definitely love to get deeper down with the nutrition and like plan out how kids can study them in a effective way, because adults and teenagers don't even like study how nutrition works. And it would just be like really valuable to like introduce young kids when they are young, to let them know what nutrition means to your body and how you can like grow taller and healthier with them.
Challenge yourself. In my coaching in competitive sports, I have 3 encouragements. My first, number one, most important encouragement is you must be present to win. And the second most important thing is you must finish the race in order for the race to count, or whatever your sport is, the match, the season. And the number 3 is do the best you can and win. Try to win. Put it all on the field, and you did that. So congratulations.
Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Great job. Great job. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much.
Logistics. So many times people say that a lot of the problems in the world come down to logistics, but I really think when it comes to starvation and just the actual life of people, I think we can do better than logistical problems. So we're addressing food insecurity in this case competition, and food insecurity is more than just hunger. It also is nutritional deficiency, which can have long-ranging developmental impacts. So that's why we believe that nutritional resilience can be achieved through agricultural educations as modeled in the Philippines, and a partnership between NGOs, for-profit corporations, and the government. This is a picture from 2019 of children in a rural health unit in Lannoy del Sur province. They have been lined up to have their heights checked. And despite all being the same age, not everyone meets the minimum height requirement, which, as you can see, is the line on the wall in the back. And which brings us to the point that food insecurity threatens a child's development, both physically and cognitively.
Adolescent obesity among Filipinos has almost tripled from 2003 to 2018, as processed foods, high in salt, fats, sugar, are becoming more accessible and, of course, more affordable. In the 1990s, researchers discovered an unexpected relationship between food insufficiency and child obesity. Children in food insecure homes are actually more likely than other children to be overweight. This is often called the hunger obesity paradox. This pattern appears early in life. Food insecurity in a child's first years is associated with obesity at age 4.
When you eat rice, it is a very fast metabolizing starch that can spike your blood sugar. So this alone is not very nutritionally balanced and can spike blood sugar, acting like a sugary substance in the body. So then you come to things like rice and beans, a staple in many Latino homes, which is a great balanced meal because it acts as a protein and fiber. Beans, especially colorful beans, are packed with antioxidants and fiber. They can reverse cell damage that leads to heart disease, cancer, chronic illnesses, and when paired with rice, can stabilize the sugaring value of the rice. Also, beans do double duty because they're a vegetable protein and a vegetable, so they count as one of the 2 to 3 cups of vegetables you should have a day. In 2016, the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition analyzed 21 studies and found that people who ate 3/4 cup of beans per day lost a moderate amount of weight, even when they didn't overall cut their calories. If you add on to that some fresh vegetables, a cup of spinach can be almost half and sometimes more than half of a child's daily need of iron. So something very simple like the common Filipino green, kangkong, can significantly reduce blood sugar problems and the anemia problems facing Filipinos.
And it brings to the point, when I was going to school in the UK, one of the subjects that was drummed into us was home economics, baking and cooking. And we had to do that 3-4 days a week. When my parents emigrated to America, that was non-existent. Home economics wasn't part of the regimen at the high school that I went to in Stamford, Connecticut. So it does come down to education. And if I throw it back at Charlotte, for her generation.
Yeah, I never had any classes on growing anything. I think the most we grew was the little seeds in the cup. And I think that's in kindergarten. Isn't that from that book, Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten, about growing the seed? I think that's the extent of my agricultural experience.
Yeah.
And so we think that we are proposing that a partnership of nonprofits like UNICEF, like the World Food Program, and other local nonprofits with corporate partners like Harvest, who are a for-profit enterprise, along with government actors, can implement and grow this sort of a webbed, interconnected network and foundation for food security. Because any one of these acting on their own would not necessarily have the resources or stability to do widespread implementation. But if you have a corporation like Harvest that is selling their seeds, but also is doing educational work with schools as approved by the government and supplemented with the resources of large nonprofits like UNICEF, you could see this program becoming larger and systemic throughout the nation, and then possibly then in turn implemented on a larger scale. And food insecurity is a global crisis. This map is from 2019, showing the level of food insecurity. You can see Southeast Asia over there. It is not even the most severe, but it is still relatively an area of severe concern. And COVID has only exacerbated this. And so that's why I think this should be continuing an area of concern. As we've seen that, we've talked about that the developmental needs of children really stem from their nutrition, and that proper nutrition really prevents a lot of long-term health problems. Some people learn well through reading, some people learn well through hearing, some people are very tactical learners. And that's why I think having robust programs that address these varying learning styles make it so much more impactful, because you're bringing in students who can't sit and listen to a lecture, who can't sit and write their ABCs a million times, but you give them a project to do and they're very involved. And that's why I think this is going to be good, not just for the nutrition security, which is key, but also the fact that it's a great educational tool to further advance childhood learning.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
And yeah, just one thing, expanding on what Charlotte says, it also involves the group as opposed to this individual study. So you're involving the community, the students like Morgan. He's teaching other younger children like he was taught, and they're all working, together. There's a sense of community that builds. So this is really, really important. Yeah, it's really important.
Yes, what is Kang Kong?
Kang Kong is a local green that's grown in the Philippines. It's common, there's various varietals in Southeast Asia. It's also called water spinach. There's a few other names for it, but it's basically sort of a leafy spinachy green. Maybe longer, flatter leaves, kind of like bamboo looking. But it's a common sort of staple. It's really high in, I want to say, hang on, I put the,
it's high in iron.
It's not as high in iron as spinach, which would be my only concern, but it's high in like vitamin C, vitamin A, potassium, and other nutrients and electrolytes that are important for development. They've said that it's really good for like lowering your blood pressure and helping with combating free radicals. Yeah, it looks like Alex's background.
Hey, bamboo.
Although I like spinach, I think most kids do not like spinach. Do the kids in the Philippines like Kang Kong?
They didn't say specifically if they do, but I do know that vegetable hesitancy is as much of a thing for kids in the Philippines as it is for kids in America. To my response to that is, it comes down to how you're taught.
Yeah.
Like I was taught, you eat what's in front of you.
Yeah.
And you have to try it.
What would be the first project that you would work with in this partnership that you would do?
Well, because his big focus is building new schools, but I think Philippines has a fairly resilient infrastructure. We could see if there's a need for additional educational infrastructure, maybe sort of trade schools, that sort of thing, where physical fitness as his thing, partnered with other hands-on learning opportunities could be available. So perhaps educational centers that could be across the country that could partner with different companies that would in turn be looking like sponsor internships and that sort of thing that could feed into either jobs down the road or just a resilient sort of knowledge for the students.
But also a holistic approach to keeping their spirit. And I don't mean spirit in a religious sense, but this combination of this
Intellectual engagement,
mind-body connection, which obviously, you know, fitness plays into that. It's wonderful to have enough food and that you get the education, but there also has to be a certain amount of fitness that is lacking in many, many parts of the world, even in the Western world. You know, fitness, health related subjects, athletics, Tai Chi, whatever it might be, is now a secondary thing. And in many schools, it's been kind of cast out. So it's not that connection of all those three elements. For me, I think this is very, very important.
Thank you so much. I'm afraid the time is up. Yeah, Alex.
You're playing us off stage. Okay.
Thank you.
It was an encore.
Thank
Nice
you.
job.
Thank you.
That was fantastic.
Enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Always great to have you.
The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development includes a collection of 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or also called SDGs. The goal is to end hunger, achieve food security, and ensure access by all people to safe, nutritious, and sufficient food all year round.
The country that our solution applies to is the Philippines. The Philippines are a Southeast Asian country consisting of multiple islands. Unfortunately, the Philippines suffer from a wide range of nutritional issues.
Due to the location of the Philippines being located near the equator, the country experiences an all-year-round growing season and has plenty of unused land with quality soil suitable for growing crops. Despite this advantage, half of the population suffers from malnutrition-related conditions. This is because a considerable amount of the population is consuming an unbalanced diet.
First, it's important to consider how the problem of nutrition manifests in the Philippines versus the rest of Southeast Asia. In the Philippines, wasting, which is low weight for height, is comparatively less severe of an issue, partially due to the rising quality of life in the Philippines that prevents more children from starving and being severely underweight. 5.6% of Filipino children are affected by wasting. This is lower than the average of 9.1% in the region. On the other hand, Filipino children are extremely susceptible to stunting, or low height for age. 30.3% of Filipino children below the age of 5 experience stunting, higher than the region's average of 21.8%. The stunting that occurs in early childhood is a huge concern because it is largely irreversible and drastically affects later growth.
The affordability of rice is another looming factor for the lack of nutrition. 1 kilogram of rice is extremely cheap at about 80 cents. Furthermore, the government also funds rice production more than anything else, and food stamps are usually rice as well. Another cause is that farmers are not profiting properly. Middlemen are traders who buy crops from farmers and sell it to customers. Farmers cannot make a sustainable living because they lose money to the middlemen and are consequently unwilling and unable to invest in land and technologies for agriculture. Adding on to a farmer's burden, food is not grown locally. Many of the crops in the Philippines are grown far away from most provinces and cities, which result in high transportation costs and increase the cost of the produce. From these high costs, farmers lose money and consumers are less willing to buy fresh produce. Nutritional education is not widely available. Children mostly learn nutrition from their parents and eat what their parents eat. However, most adults are not properly educated either.
So now to introduce the client that we worked with for this case competition, Harvest Agribusiness Corporation. Harvest Agribusiness Corporation is an agriculture company based in the Philippines, and the corporation's main goals are to 1, localize farming by tackling the hefty transportation costs that have recently come to be as a result of the ongoing pandemic. 2, remove the need for a middleman by making the transition from farm to highway to farm to market, thus maximizing the profits of Harvest's customers, as the farm to highway type of transporting goods to the market is mainly beneficial for the politicians and not for the farmers. And 3, further develop current and future programs that aim to cultivate new skills in both farmers, urban workers, and everyday people in general. And most importantly, 4, to educate future generations regarding topics and issues like this, as the future falls into the hands of the younger generations. To better approach the goals of both our client and SDG number 2, Zero Hunger, our solution revolves around the Harvest Agribusiness Corporation initiative, Harvest TV.
The combination of corn, beans, and squash is known to the Iroquois tribe as the Three Sisters. These staples have been proven to deliver the essential nutrients, as corn supplies carbohydrates, beans provide proteins, and squash delivers vitamins and minerals. This kind of cultural conception of nutrition can be adapted to the situation in the Philippines to make nutritional consumption more second nature in a similar fashion. Our nutrition campaign would focus on the rise of the usage of social media to spread knowledge and encourage practice of good nutrition. As of January 2020, the Philippines has a social media penetration rate of nearly 70%. More than 95% of the users are connected through the social media platform of Facebook and the video sharing platform of YouTube as of January 2021.
So here are some examples of posters that we would use to market and publicize via Facebook. And so this just really shows the versatility of the platform, where we can target every single audience. And so these are some of the sample posters that we made as posts that could be used on social media. So on the very left here, you kind of see the personification of fruits and vegetables, which would particularly appeal to small children because they may not yet have the capacity to learn about the nutrients like certain vitamins, but seeing the fruits and vegetables personified in this sort of way incentivizes them to go learn more about them. Second from the left here, you see easy recipes to make homemade fertilizer, which would help especially urban Filipinos that live in urban areas become more self-sufficient, as COVID-19 has restricted some access to fresh produce. And it would also prevent the use of pesticides because there are so many easy alternatives to help increasing the nutrients in soil and promoting the growth of different vegetables and fruits. Third from the left here, you see an easy vegetable salad recipe, and this is particularly targeted towards adults who may not have that much time to make healthy recipes for their kids and thus may resort to processed foods such as like hamburgers that are easier and cheaper to access. But this is basically showing that it is actually really easy to provide nutritious food for your kids. And this just helps make it easier for the entire population to be more nutritious overall. And on the right here, you see a more complex post basically explaining the nutritional benefits of many of the fruits that are found commonly in the Philippines. And so this just basically informs the general population of why they should be consuming these fruits and vegetables and how it's good for them.
Additionally, connections to SDG number 13, climate action, can be seen as well. Like many rapidly urbanizing countries, the Philippines struggles with unsustainable plastic production and consumption, as well as a waste management infrastructure that heavily relies on open dumping sites, giving plastics a clear pathway into the waterways. Our solution helps Filipinos become more self-sufficient and aware of how they can improve their own nutrition. Thus, we can get rid of a lot of packaging waste while also helping the company thrive by incentivizing farmers to invest in even better technology to improve their productivity and better match the market demands. Thank you.
Okay, very good job. Spike, Marion, do you want to go first?
Thank you, Alex. All right, at one point you spoke about the middleman. How do you envision cutting out the middleman? Do you have any recommendations?
I can speak on this a little bit. So one of the reasons why there are a lot of middlemen is because a lot of the production of fresh produce is happening away from these urban areas that have high demand for vegetables or from a lot of like more populated provinces. So by increasing the amount of people who are interested in farming, that essentially localizes it. So if there are more people out of province A who are willing to go into farming, then there'll be more like gardens for farming built near province A, since those people are coming out of there. And then with that kind of less distance between the actual producer and the place that is consuming these goods, there's not much of a need for a middleman that takes care of those transportation costs. And so farmers can just directly communicate with their consumers.
My question is, I saw that you used UNICEF as a data source, a UN system, and others, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to summarize again, if you like, what data sources did you use for today's presentation that were sourced out of the United Nations system?
Would anyone else like to go first? I think you can go in order. We can start with, I think everyone, we can just do a little loop around since we all did quite a lot of research outside of the UN. So Jolene, do you want to go ahead first?
For my slides, I just did research on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and I just used the website from United Nations, and I would use their data and their graphs and all that.
One of the resources that I used for the statistics in the very beginning about comparing like the situation in the Philippines versus the rest of Southeast Asia, and also looking at the historical trends, was the Global Nutrition Report. So that was a really great resource because they had a lot of visuals. So all of the graphs that I used were all like image credit is theirs. And they update it very like frequently. I think it's every 4 months or 6 months. So I really got to access like very current research and got to compare that to like historically how the Philippines has performed on many different nutrition issues.
And our group also benefited from the information UNICEF presented on childcare. We recognized that 95 children in the Philippines die from malnutrition, and then 27 out of 1,000 Filipino children do not get past their 5th birthday. And then we recognized the importance of that, and we tried to address it in our solution. In addition, we also looked at the education part, which UNICEF also presented on the different site of their website. So we saw that the Filipino children miss out on opportunities to learn in areas of education, and then the quality of education they receive are less than that of, for example, the United States. And then the condition of their learning environment is also problematic. So we designed the little posters, as I mentioned before, and then those are attempting to educate them on the vegetables, and then so they can be more interested in them, and then know more in terms of education.
Yeah, in terms of my research, I mainly looked at different research papers from different like journals and stuff. One of them I found was actually from one called Nutrients, and it mainly talked about food sources and nutritional intake in the Filipino working adults. Yeah, a lot of them had lots of really interesting statistics, and they were mainly very up-to-date ones as well.
What time do we have? We have like 5 more minutes.
Something to say. Sydney, were you going to say something, Sydney?
Oh, I was going to add on to the research. During my research, because I was doing the causes of the nutritional issues, and I actually found some really cool sources that were from the Manila Times, which is like the New York Times of the Philippines. And so, yeah, I use a lot of sources that are from the countries that are like, that people from the Philippines will read as well.
I'm gonna go to the grocery store now. I'm feeling hungry.
Well, you're in a good place to go shopping.
I'll go pick a banana off the tree.
Thank you.
Okay, so in terms of wrapping it up here, we will have another opportunity together when we announce the results and so forth. And I just hope that you found this valuable. I know I did, and I'm really grateful to these fellow judges and my co-conspirators, Cheryl and Lily. So anybody else you want to have a parting word?
Just thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation, and it was really, beautifully executed.
I think you knocked it out of the ballpark. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful learning experience for us also.
I particularly love the Iroquois story. It's wonderful. Thank you guys for sharing that.
All I can say is thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for participating. It's very, very inspirational for me. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
Can we
Thank you
give
so
a
much
round
for
of applause
judging.
to Alex, actually, for for putting everything together, and for Cheryl? Thank you, guys. It's wonderful. And all the judges, of course.
Thank you so much for judging.
You know, it is a team sport.